Hi, and welcome back to Hope Springs. My name is Hazel, and I'm here with Sylvia. And today's topic is, would you rather be right than happy? So, Sylvia, you're in Poland today, and you're glowing. How are you?
Yeah, it's amazing. The weather is beautiful, and I really enjoy being here and spending time with family. So, yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I'm London. It's predicted to be 30 degrees today. So I've got my fan next to me, my water bottle with frozen ice,
Ooh.
and yeah, dressing cool. So I'm ready. I'm ready. Um, and I'm so excited about the topic because it's a topic that we've been talking about over kind of from time to time, isn't it? Our experiences of how people react and respond to sharing their opinions and kind of the idea that when they have an opinion that they're right and no one else's opinion matters. So what has been your experience of that?
Mm. So, yeah, I can definitely see from, especially now, the pressure on being right uh, is bubbling.
Hmm.
And yeah, people are really more even explosive, and they're very attached to their opinion.
Hmm.
Many times, even without any intentions, I'm getting into some kind of argument
Yes. Yeah.
that because I didn't realize how sensitive people are now. So I don't know what is going on at the moment. Is it just because there is a lot of pressure from the press and like people are feeling that they have to defend themselves all the time? Like, what do you think?
I think that as well as I just noticed it's probably going back even before the pandemic. Certainly, I noticed from around Brexit time
Mm,
um, how guys speaking about so like your choice of who you voted for, whether you voted in or out, and how explosive people were. So people you couldn't share your opinions or share your choice because of the fear of being attacked, or that people thought that if you voted one way that you were wrong and couldn't accept the idea that people's got their own opinions, they've got choices, there's freedom of choice, and whatever choice that we make, we're responsible for that. I noticed that as well in the like relationship context where there's a kind of um, maybe not relationship but general religion as well, that one religion think they're right, the other think they're not, the other one isn't, and there's so much conflict. So I think maybe it's a human condition in itself
mm,
that we've been kind of like, that's been something that's been in our DNA in terms of what we were taught. You know, you have to follow this political group or you have to follow this religious group. So maybe in a way, we're already set up for that, but some people probably have stronger views than others, and some people hold on to the views more than other people would.
mhm. Okay. So
Mhm.
what do you think if you were to give some tips how
Mhm.
to help the other person to be more open-minded, because
Mhm.
in my view what I can see, like, more close-minded you are, more angry you become, because everything you take it personally as like a
Yeah.
personal attack. So
Yeah.
what do you think could help that kind of person to become more open-minded?
Well, before tips, I think maybe it's good to understand. I'll come back to the tips about from my own hypothesis, kind of what might be creating that. And I suppose from a psychological point of view, I'm thinking about um, when I'm assessing, looking at people's background. So in terms of culture and family beliefs, so all of us are brought up in families and cultures that have their own norms and beliefs that tells us what is right or wrong. And if we're and a lot of the times those beliefs are okay, But as you get older, if you stay attached to just that culture or that family, and you're not exposing yourself, you're not experiencing life, you're not joining other groups or trying to learn about other people's culture or their political or religious belief, you can then become very restricted in your views. And you can then start to think, because you've been brought up there, well, then that's the only way. So any other way is the wrong way. And therefore, you become quite judgmental and critical and even aggressive and violent sometimes, always, as we're seeing in the world. So I think for me, if you understand your background and you understand where you've come from and you understand, like, okay, these are what I've been taught, but then everyone else in the world have been taught something different or similar. So how can we try and learn from each other, understand each other, and respect that that's just one position, one way of thinking, but other people have different perspective. So how can we live together, understanding each other's ideas? And sometimes it might just be accepting that you see it differently to me. Like, look at me, I'm black, you're white. You're Polish, I'm from the Caribbean. We've been brought up in different ways, haven't we? We've got different cultural beliefs. We look different. So therefore, we weren't created to be the same. That's just an example. If we were all created to be white or black, then how boring will that be?
Yeah.
So the fact that we're different makes it me think the creator's idea, God, what whatever religion you believe in, created us to be different and unique. So maybe that's a starting point to look at it in terms of our difference actually is a gift
Mhm.
rather than feeling that everyone has to be the same or to be the same. So I guess I'm trying to understand it, but also trying to maybe suggest accepting difference.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's
Uh,
actually it's beautiful when those different forces join
mhm,
together.
mhm,
Something even more powerful can emerge. Like you can see
mhm.
that in any kind of levels, from like the cuisine to fashion and design.
Yeah,
When you combine those differences, like you can really create something incredible, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a fear, the fear that drives people to feel that that because they've got an opinion and they're right, and they might be right in terms of their belief system. Because if you listen to two different arguments, both arguments sound very real and very right. But if we're stuck with that, there's no way to move forward. So sometimes it's kind of, I suppose I'm interested in why someone gets so attached to their point that they get so angry and frustrated and want to control you and want to tell you this is the way. I don't know. Have you had experience of that where people have they've shown an aggressive, angry behavior, or maybe they don't talk to you again because you're different or you didn't have the same opinion?
Oh, well, first of all, I think um, I need to confess that I was like that, like
Mm-hmm.
recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably even my there are some points in my life that I'm not that attached, but like for example, the
Mm-hmm.
political situation, especially in Poland, is one of those points that I found difficult to give a credit to someone else. Where now
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like a little bit better. Still, it annoys me like certain opinions about how things could work. Maybe it's also because I don't live in Poland right now, so
Mm-hmm.
I have different experiences. Um, but yeah, I can see that also if you go to any kind of social media. I've been recently, I mentioned to you some time ago, I've been recently attacked uh, by a person, even like I didn't comment on his post,
Mm-hmm.
but he then, I've mentioned something in the comment, and then he got back to me and trying to have an argument with me and saying that if I'm not ready to. And I was like, look, if this is what you think, that's fine with me. But he
Mm-hmm.
was like taking it to a position where he said something like, oh, if you're not ready to fight for it, why would you even have an opinion? And I said, I said, which I do believe is like, okay, my opinion works for me at this time, and I don't expect anyone to share my opinion, because just because it's working for me, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will work for you.
Yeah.
So that's my overall view in life.
Yeah.
Obviously there are certain areas in life that I'm little bit attached, like that's normal, but also like the life experience showed me that I can be wrong.
It's interesting. He used the word fight. You have to fight for it. And I think if you come from that kind of position that when you have an opinion or someone else have an opinion, they have to fight, tells me that he was shaped by the idea that in order to, I have to defend myself, I have to fight, which means that he's in a defense position, he's defensive. And that tells me that maybe he was brought up in that environment where he had to fight to get his voice heard. So the fact that he's saying that, whereas you might have had a different experience, and yes, I mean, I've had experience where I, in the past, and sometimes really feel strongly about my opinion, and sometimes I would speak up and say, actually, no, I'm not going to accept this. I mean, recently, like my youngest daughter, she's got a very strong, she's very confident, and she's just very sharp, and sometimes she might say something, and I think, oh, would I, do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? Do I want to have a happy home, or do I want to be in this argument? Because sometimes we kind of we have this fiery relationship, which is quite loving, but we've got both got strong opinions, and I appreciate the fact that she's got a voice and she's got an opinion. And my friends used to always say, "Who does she take from?" So I know she's learned a lot from me in that way, and I like that. But times when I'm thinking, no, I'm gonna stand my ground. I'm gonna just say what I think because this is really important for me. And the times when I would just think, I'm not in the mood, or say, I'm not even gonna go there because I want to have peaceful, happy home. So I'm
Yeah.
making a choice there, either to fight back, to respond, or to react. But I think that comes with how emotionally grounded and how maybe at peace you feel in yourself. Because when I'm not feeling at peace or I'm feeling stressed or irritable, I will probably more snap back more
Mm,
or react more. And to me, that's when you lose your control and you lose yourself. So it's interesting that he said fight because it's almost like his agenda is to fight
mm-hmm,
and to attack. So it makes me wonder what's his intention, or someone who behaves like that, what's their intention when they're giving their opinion?
mm-hmm.
Is it to listen to someone else's opinion and have an open discussion, or is it to fight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
explain to him why, because
Mm-hmm.
I always say that if you have an opinion, you should always be able to explain why you think that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, because there's so many people just following the rules, they read about. For me, there is no one political party that I would follow 100%. There could
Mm-hmm.
be some points that are, in my opinion, better for me and
Mm-hmm.
for my people, you know.
Yeah.
So then I would follow them, but I would not follow 100% or agree 100% on that. And I do believe that you always should be able to explain why do you think in a certain way? Why do you have an opinion like that or the other way around?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I see that. I agree. I mean, I think that it comes with being curious to understand, why you have a particular point of view, being open to listen, being patient. Because I notice a lot of people, and sometimes me in the past, that um, they're quick to respond or quick to interrupt without actually listening the other position because they've got such strong view. I think listening is a very powerful tool because that shows that you have wisdom, not because you have a lot of opinion and words means that you know everything. But if you're wise, it means that you can listen and feel like I don't need to be right. I don't need to have an opinion all the time, but to know when to have an opinion. And I think you'll feel it inside when you know, okay, I need to speak up now. But someone with an agenda who are, I think a maturity as well, because I'm looking back, I probably was one of those people that felt like, oh, I need to say that, I need to say this. And over time, I've just started thinking, um, it can isolate people because people would kind of think, well, she's always got an opinion. She has so much to say. She's dismissing my opinion, etc. Or you could, it could create stress in you if you always have to, say this and have this opinion. It creates a lot of stress where you're just so attached to your feelings, isn't it? An opinion. So that's not good for a body or a mind.
I also think that in these circumstances, you should really pick your fight. So for me, something that I will always fight for is like, for example, not humiliate other people in when I'm around. I'm not having that, I'm not going there. So like if I see someone, I will definitely tell them, no, that's not right. And I think it is important, again, like what is the common value for all of us?
Yeah.
Because we don't have to agree in everything. But for me, for example, something like a liberty, something like a humanity, it's really important. So, or to be respectful. So I do believe sometimes people kind of forget of like what we have in common, and they concentrate on the differences more than anything else.
Yes. And as well, they're concentrating on the differences, but as well as that, there's a sense of, I would say, lack of experience, a lack of identity. Because I noticed, for example, with those strong groups, and this is not a criticism of any group, but like, say some people who are, like, for example, animal rights protesters, or the planet, what you call it? Yes, just try, I forgot the name. But people who have strong political, views about, about eating meat, about saving the planet. I mean, I have my views about it because I love nature. But the ones who go extreme and they will do anything just to prove their point. To me, sometimes it speaks to someone who actually is off balance, and they're trying to attach to different groups. And because they've had an experience, they think the experience is the only experience. So somebody, for example, who would say, maybe because they, for religious reason, for health reason, whatever, they've decided not to eat meat, fine. But then it becomes like a religion to them, and anyone else who eats meat is wrong, is bad, is not good. To me, that's someone who is quite extreme, and actually is counterproductive to the idea of peace and harmony, because everyone can't be like you. And it's interesting. I had a client a few years ago, and she was an activist, and saved the earth. I'm just using an example like that, similar to that. And she said to me, in the end, working with her, I realized that there was a lot of issues around her identity. She didn't know who she was. So she was attached herself to all these different groups that were extreme. And she was saying to me that actually the burnout rate, she was in her mid-20s, for people like herself who are extreme activists, is very, very high. They burn out from in their late 20s to early 30s, because they put so much energy into being right and for the cause, that there's so tunnel vision that they can't see any other way, and it kind of burns them out. So that tells me that's not healthy. So there have to be a middle ground.
Yeah, I think like your views nearly can become your religion, but it's with
Yes.
everything. Like even you can see that in the fitness industry, they are all like so healthy, but they cannot see that, they doing nothing else. They're not leaving any room for any kind of like, it's this perfection then. It's just like it's really interesting to observe that even those people, they have to, and even like in the spiritual world, right? You have all of those very open yogis and all of those spiritual
Zen,
people, but
yes.
yet they are so fixated on that
Yeah.
idea, that they not letting anyone leave their way, just because they think it's not right.
It's not right, but also I think underneath it again is fear, because I notice when if things go wrong, if people like that are in a crisis, they're not able to cope generally, because they've put all their belief and energy into this one way, and if that gets taken away, so that's their identity and their focus and their god, if you want to call it that. If that gets pulled away, and then a crisis, they've got nothing else to look at, to be honest. So they start questioning their own philosophy, and like, who am I? Who was I all this time? And you find some many people that, the ones that I've worked with, what happens in the end is that they go into to collapse or chaos, because they're trying to question life now, and some of them might end up leaving the religious sect, or stop, following the spiritual path, or stop, following the strict diet, because they realize that when crisis came, they coped, they were still okay without that fixed ideas. So it intrigues me why someone gets so intense, and even if that's their belief system or my belief system, it's not about whether their system, their belief or their way is wrong or right. Is the fact that it becomes so one dimensional that no one else's opinion matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where it goes wrong, when people start discounting your opinion, or
Mm-hmm.
thinking that they're right and you're wrong, rather than thinking actually it's possible that, like when you're in a family, every family member should have their own opinion,
Yeah.
but you have like a shared vision, isn't it? Shared views, but you'll have your own independent opinions. I think the same should be expected in society, where we're all different, but we can have shared opinions and values as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is really hard to make a decision about anything, uh, and we can see that in the political world right now,
Mm-hmm.
where yeah, you just focus on being right and not trying to understand, okay, what's the biggest impact I can do, for majority of people. Because let's face the fact, when you're making a decision, right,
Mm-hmm.
um, it will impact negatively some people, especially like if it's a big decision. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the reality. But
Yeah.
again, it's just trying to understand, what is the common ground, and what are the shared values along the
Mm-hmm.
society, so the decision is different. I'm just saying that because like that reminds me of recently also, I've seen something on Twitter, and there was this guy. Oh, there was an opinion about lockdowns, and a doctor said that because of the lockdowns, like many thousands of people were not diagnosed with cancer, and like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a problem. And then there was this guy, he was saying something. Oh, but like that's not true, because when I had something going on with his health, I don't exactly know why, I had
Mm-hmm.
no problems getting this and this treatment. And I went back to him because I couldn't just
Yeah.
then like I was like, just because it's not your experience, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not real for others. And I think sometimes people forget about it. They just live in their bubble, and trying to be right.
Yeah. And he's speaking from the I,
Yeah.
like I. So the ego, as you were saying earlier, it's like all about me, my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's where you get. And if you take it in terms of politics, it's just usually like that group thinks it's the ego again, isn't it? Like their opinion,
Yeah.
their views matter only. But I met a friend recently for lunch. She's Jewish, and it was when the Palestinian crisis was at the height of that kind of, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. It was just what's the word, increase in terms of deaths in the crisis. And but she had this bag with her, and I can't remember what it said, but she lives in London, and she's formed this group in her community. Not she's formed, but she belongs to this group where Jewish women and Muslim women meet,
Oh,
and they just have lunch together. They do picnic. They just chat. And I was joking to her and saying that maybe your group need to be advising, these groups who are in conflict, because the women are coming together and they're existing side by side in unity, trying to learn about each other, trying to support each other. They've done marches in London, etc. To me, that's a good way of showing how we can live together and coexist together. And there are a lot of cultures that did that before. In terms of the other example I have is when I went to Fiji a few years ago. I was struck by the similarities to Tobago, where I was born. Like, you had all these different religious groups, and in the place that I stayed, on one end of the street was the Catholic church, and the other was the Anglican church, and then they existed together just on a little strip of thing. They were kind of like in the same community. And then the Muslim, every morning you'll hear that they do the call to worship, and it was such a peaceful community. And that's my experience of living in the Caribbean. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but people existed together and
mm,
accepted the difference. And yes, there were some things that created conflict, but it wasn't to that level where you kind of like started fighting each other for who's right or who's wrong.
mhm. One of the most diverse places I've ever been was India.
Hmm.
And like in India, like, even the languages, the religion, you have thousands of different, dialects,
Yeah.
different religions, and yet again they live together. I was amazed. Like, we visited this place. It was called Lotus Temple,
Hmm.
and in that temple, everybody, like, people meet and they like pray or having the meditation, whatever. There is
Hmm.
no religious signs. um, it's just to it's built to unite people, and I found that concept so beautiful, because
Hmm.
again, it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, we all have similar beliefs, even though we don't know about it. Just
Hmm.
because my God looks like that, doesn't mean that the shared values are not similar. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was amazed.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think there's a lot of communities that's trying to bring that together. All you hear in the media is about the conflicts, but there's a lot of communities that live like that. And that makes me think about, I was doing this meditation last night with this Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh. And I used to do it a lot, but I haven't done it for ages. But I found that my breathing was just really all over the place. So he teaches you how to breathe. And he talks about when you're not breathing and in alignment with kind of like, the universe with life, and you're like in one, it's like a tiger who's lived in the mountain, and he's left to come out of the mountains, and he's just placing himself under attack because there's no protection for him. And similarly, in the Christian religion, it talks about if you're not in alignment with like the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, um, what happens is that you bring fear takes over, or they call it, or you could say the devil or the evil thing takes over. So it kind
Mhm.
of creates that you die to yourself, you die to that sense of you because you've lost yourself. So I was thinking about, it's the same concept that this Buddhist monk was talking about, and the Christian teaching around, if you're not connected to something of power or source, or like you're in stillness, you lose yourself, and you can lose your mind. To me, that's kind of like two religions coexisting, giving the same meaning,
Mhm.
although there's different ways of teaching it. And finally, there's a book. It's by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And on the book, there's this picture where both of them are like two little boys, like hugging, and it says joy, Joy. And just, to me, that is the ultimate like representation of people living together, because they're great figures. and influential religious figures, but yet they can teach you that they can live together. And every year they meet and they spend time together just
Mhm.
and they play and they tease each other. They share their belief system. So yeah, it's amazing that they
Mhm.
can influence us and show us how to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So going back now
Yes,
to
yeah,
my question before, what kind of tips would you would you
yeah.
give to someone to become more open-minded? Because
Mm.
I do believe a lot of that, like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves when we stick to just our views and the opinion about how world should uh,
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think the title itself, "Would you rather be happy than right?" Would you be rather be right than happy? Is one of my tips because that's what I've learned. I can't remember where I got that from, but it's obviously someone that influenced me a lot. And I learned it in terms of relationship and when I'm doing couple or family therapy about how do you create peace and harmony in a relationship. Sometimes you have to be able to step down and not be the one who's always right and always want to prove a point, but to create peace, you have to be willing and strong enough to suspend your belief to allow peace. So
Mhm.
I would say ask yourself the question when you have a strong opinion, you think about is it going to create peace or conflict? So would you rather be right than happy?
Mhm.
And ultimately, most people want to be happy. I'd say be kind of being very mindful that your belief is just your truth. It's not everyone else's truth. Everyone else would have a different experience or different perspective. So be willing to be curious, ask questions, you know, just find out more about the person, their belief, their practice, and then share your belief and your experience and practice. And when you're curious and when you ask questions, you open the opportunity to have a dialogue and a conversation. And you find out most of the times you end up having similar values. It's just that you're coming from different direction.
Mhm.
So that's my second tip. Third tip is to be to be silent sometimes. Maybe that goes with the second tip about listening, being patient, and checking your emotions. Because when you're feeling like you want to be right and you want to attack, maybe you have to tune into yourself and think, what's going on for me? Why do I feel so strongly about this? And why do I have to share this opinion? Um, and what's my intention? Is it to create love or to create harm? So that's kind of what my tips would be for me. How about you?
Mhm. I would add into to all of this, because there will be situation where you kind of have to say something.
Hmm.
So especially in the relationship, because I know that that can create a bit of tension. But just again, like you need to learn how to speak about certain things. So for me, would be like, okay, if I would see my partner having a strong opinion about something, then it's just like trying to step back and trying to say something like, look, this is really important to me, because sometimes people don't know,
Hmm.
right? So we're trying to make them aware that,
Hmm.
look, I really want to do this because of blah blah blah. But again, as I said earlier, it's just learning, why do I think that way, why is it important to me? And
Hmm.
it could be a part of my identity or whatever, or something bigger that I want to um, achieve in the future.
Hmm.
So there could be and other reasons. In terms of tips, I would say, for me it was like, really, I've started changing just because I've started visiting places,
Hmm.
started being exposed to different kind of people, not just Polish people in this kind of culture.
Hmm.
This is how it really helped me to understand that it doesn't have to be my way, uh,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's actually better, because I enjoy new experiences. You know, when I see people, for example, this is just a small example of like, you know, eating only certain foods, I'm just like, guys, you don't really know what you're missing out
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
life, because if you will let yourself to try different things, your life experience would totally change and it'd be much more beautiful.
yeah, yeah. I like that, and I had this talk yesterday with my the person who does my hair, cut my hair, and he's quite a religious person. Um, and in the sense we have similar beliefs in terms of Christianity, but he's to me he's more extreme. He's like the straight down Christian, whereas like I'm kind of a Christian, but I'm open to listen to other people's religious views and beliefs because I learn a lot. And he was talking about he wanted me to tell him about my experience in Tobago, and I said, well, actually, I had a really good experience in Tobago because I was very curious about other people's churches, and I would go to my friends' churches and he was, well, tell me about this particular church, which is like religion. And I said, well, I remember going to them. Their family involved me. They were very healthy people. They part of the religion is to follow really strict healthy diets, and I was very intrigued by their diet. I don't remember what they talked about in the church, but I remember how they treated me. And he was telling me all the facts and about this religion. They found all the research that said that, you know, the person who created this religion, she was a liar and she plagiarized all this information and blah blah. I'm like, that might be true, but that my experience was that I connected to the people and I had a good time and they welcomed me, and nowhere in in my interaction with them did they talk about this person. So for me, it was about that curiosity, and even if all this research was done on this person who created the religious group, the people itself on the ground level were just loving, kind, accepting people, and they didn't harm me. So I think it's something about that allowing yourself to learn from other people. I like that, and being in different environments where you're learning about culture, food, etc. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose your identity. It just makes it more richer, I think. It makes your experience more richer. And you're more open to sharing and listening and living in harmony.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's important, just to, and to be honest, like, even now when I, you know, people think like they have to have opinion about everything, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the problem as well.
Mm-hmm.
uh, because for me it's like I don't really feel like, if for example, for something more complex, I don't necessarily have 100% opinion, because for example,
Yeah.
like in that conflict, like Palestinian and you know, Jewish conflict, there are certain things I'm not there. Obviously I could have a bit of my opinion, but again, I don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's the same, like I'm not trying to judge anyone's life, because I don't know
Yeah.
100% of things what is going on in that in the background.
Yeah.
So sometimes people forget about it, that they don't have the full picture of
Yeah.
like why people are doing certain things, why they behave in a certain way. um yeah, maybe that's something that we should keep in mind as well.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting because when I met with my friend who's Jewish, I asked her because I said to her, I don't understand. Of course, you listen to the Western media, but I said, I don't understand the history and the context. Tell me a bit more. And she actually sat down and she explained to me from her position, and she was very objective. She didn't, although she was Jewish, she's similar, I said to me and you, that she's very interested in other people's culture, and so she trying to give me the history from both sides, how she understood it. And to me that was easy to accept because she wasn't saying, you know, as a Jewish person we're right. She was
Yeah.
trying to get understand where the Palestinian people was coming from as well, and it made me more aware, and I could talk more about it, but I still don't know enough to kind of say, oh, I support this side or I support that side. I think that would be disrespectful to have an opinion when you don't understand the people's their history and why they've got their opinions about who's right or who's wrong.
Like I remember I had this conversation actually when I was in the US, and that was with a young
Mm.
African American guy, and he was trying to explain to me why things are working in a certain way. And I was like,
Mm,
look, I understand what you're saying to me, but I don't understand the whole
mhm,
concept, because for me, people are the most important.
mhm,
It's
mm,
just, I think there's a lot of history and a lot of attachment to what
mhm,
was there. And uh,
mhm,
for me, coming from different background, like I just said it out loud. I just don't understand. It doesn't mean that, I dismiss the whole experience. I
mhm.
do believe, people have certain rights and everything. It's just like, it's much harder for me to kind of
Yeah,
get into the shoes. And but again, like it's like I'm being open about it, saying like, look, I don't know, because
yeah. But you're open to learning. I
yes,
think that's the
exactly.
difference. Yeah, where some people are like, no, this is the way, and that's it. I'm not listening. And I think that goes back to how we were brought up. Most of us in childhood, if you're brought up in a family that, like you have very authoritative parents or controlling parents that says, this is the way, that's the way we do it. We
Mhm.
don't do it any other way. Or you're brought up in a religious community, that's it. If you do anyway, then we're gonna excommunicate you, you're gonna die, whatever. So people have that fear and
Mm.
they've grown up thinking this is the only way. So you have to take risk and be curious to learn. It doesn't mean you're gonna change who you are. You're still you, but you just
Yeah,
learn more about someone else's experience.
yeah,
Because I don't think I've become worse. I'm still a black woman from the Caribbean with my own identity and values, but I like learning about other people's experiences and culture.
yeah. It really helped me also to read a lot of different books, like
Hmm.
philosophical books, really
Yeah,
religious books. But that was since I was like teenager. I was always
mhm,
exploring the different subjects,
yeah,
because
yeah,
there was always like, okay, I understand this and that, but what about, this kind of points?
yeah, yeah.
And some of the things didn't really make 100% sense to me, so I would try to uh, get more ideas about
Hmm.
certain topics. So
That's the curious mind.
mhm,
I think curiosity goes a long way. They say curiosity kills the cat, but I actually think curiosity opens up the door for so much opportunity to expand
mhm.
and to grow and
Yeah,
to evolve.
yeah, definitely. All right. So what will be the wrap up thought for our viewers?
Yeah, I think it's just be open, be curious, be respectful, and know that um, being right all the time doesn't necessarily make you happy. So you have to choose whether you enter into a discussion or give your opinion and choose and decide what the impact or how that's going to affect someone else.
Hmm.
So be respectful, be careful before you share your opinion, especially on social media. We didn't go into that much. We talked
Oh
about
yes, that's
Twitter and things. Well, I think since social media has become so much more accessible, people can hide behind it in a coward way to give their opinion rather than be kind of thoughtful. So I think that's been very abusive in itself, where a lot
mhm,
of people who would not day to day face you and say things would abuse that on social media. So
mhm,
think about the impact that you're having on someone else when you post things or you say things that's not kind.
mhm. Yeah, I think, yeah, being like open to listen to other person, and sometimes they say something like, "I don't agree with you," and that's
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
and just leave it like that. You don't have to tear the other person down.
yeah, yeah.
You don't have to
Absolutely.
call them idiots or whatever. As we can
No,
see, especially on the social media, it's actually crazy.
because you could come back and say, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me, why don't you agree with me? What's your thoughts? What's your views?" That
Mhm,
opens up this opportunity to have a conversation, isn't it?
mhm. But isn't it like people are a little bit pressured also, because
Mhm.
they find that there's a very little time to do things,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yes, so maybe they shouldn't post it in the first place. if you're not prepared to go into that discussion, I know there are times when you probably wouldn't have time and times when you will. I'm just joking. It comes back with personal responsibility, isn't it?
Mhm.
Be careful and be whatever you said, you have to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, and I like that thing. Like, be respectful is the biggest factor. So you can have any kind of opinion, but just be respectful that there are other people that it won't necessarily your opinion won't work for them, and it's okay.
Yeah. Wow. So once again, it's been amazing just chatting to you. And I think the fact that we're in different countries at the moment, women of different race, culture, having this discussion, I think kind of um, symbolize the discussion about having difference, being curious, listening to each other, and just learning. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure having this discussion with you. And we're just really, once again, thanks for everyone who's been following us and subscribing and giving their comments. And we really want to hear comments. So please share your comments and share this video.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much.